Welcome to episode 5 of the FD podcast. Today we're going to talk about a topic that I'm really passionate about. I'm from a really multicultural environment, and there's a lot that goes on. There's a lot I'm a part of. I'm really wanting to get to the depths of, because I feel a lot of people, you come to me for the fitness information, you come to me for the psychology information because you trust I've gone into the depths of these topics. So I'm here with a good friend of mine, Abdul.
Hello, Scott.
A proud Muslim. And we're going to talk about a couple of topics that are in the media today. We're not going to focus on any one too much, but I'm going to give you what I believe as a podcaster is the information you need. So the first topic I think we'll talk about is one that was highlighted by a lot of my followers. Do the Muslim community at large want Sharia law in the UK?
All right. So obviously that is a hot topic right now. First, let's go back and what is Sharia law? Yeah. If you break it down, it actually means law. Sharia means law in Arabic, right? Yeah. So, and what that is, it's a code, a set of codes that Muslims live by, right? So, for example, Christians also do so as well. According to the Bible, they like to live a certain way, as do Jewish people. According to the Torah and the Talmud, they will follow certain codes as well. Now, I think where everybody's getting confused is there are certain things called Sharia courts in the UK. Now, what that's about is, let's say me and you are Muslims and we've got a dispute. You owe me money, or the more likely situation is that I owe you money, Scott. So I owe you money and then I've not paid it back, and then you want to settle this and we want to do it in a way in accordance with our religion. So we go to the Sharia courts and say, this is what's happened. What do we do about it? And they will say, yeah, this is what, according to the religion, yeah, you owe him money, you need to give it back, or you need to come up with a payment plan or whatnot, right? And it could be for anything. It could be divorce or marital issues, or people have problems with their children. They'll go there. But of course, that's not enforceable law. Yeah, it never will be. It cannot be. Yeah. So, people being worried about Sharia law in the UK, it's even if the Muslims wanted it, let's say every Muslim wanted it is impossible for that to be in place, right? Because we have the law of the land here. That's not going to change. The High Court is not going to adopt these rules. So how can it even possibly happen? Secondly, do Muslims want it? No. I mean, I remember it was, I saw a soundbite of GB News, and Nigel Farage was on, and he said that the Muslims are getting it. It's going to come. And this is quote, he said, I was in a taxi the other day. The taxi driver said to me, we are getting Sharia law. It's coming and you will live by law. Firstly, I know a lot of taxi drivers, and believe me, they're the last people that want Sharia law in this country. And secondly, if you're in a taxi and a taxi driver tells you something's going to happen, it doesn't necessarily mean that thing's going to happen. And, being from Luton, which obviously gets a bad rap, and, predominantly, there's a lot of Muslim communities, a lot of mosques there. And I can tell you categorically, it's not something the Muslim community are pushing or anything. It's something that we want to go and refer to if we have certain issues that we want an imam or someone, in the same way a Christian person might ask the priest for advice. Yeah.
And let's be honest, if we're talking about the ability for any small subsection of the British culture, because obviously many Muslims, my great friends, are British. They're born here. They contributed here. A lot of us Christians, I'm agnostic. I'm an atheist, so I don't have a foot in any camp. But I know 90% of my Christian friends do not practice Christianity, do not refer to Christian rules. So I actually said to someone, is it a bad thing that smaller communities do refer to their own rule books if it settles things in-house? And I don't know one Muslim, and I'm proud to say some of my best friends are Muslim. I've been helped out, ironically, in the worst times by my Muslim brothers. None of them want Sharia law. None of them talk about it. And it's something I actually said to my wife, I've never heard it. And I've lived with Muslim friends of mine. My doctor is a Muslim. Where has this come from, do you think? Because one thing I want to talk about is this fear and this division, the reason why we're being told these things, the reason why a soundbite was clipped that a taxi, if your call to information as a taxi driver, shit has gone wrong. Yeah. And there will be people out there, and there'll be predominantly white people will go, Nigel Farage said, what, based on a taxi driver, mate? Well, yeah, but that taxi driver's got his ear to the ground. Probably not, mate.
No.
And where's this come from?
So it's... Well, it's two things, really. I think the first thing is fear and hatred is a much bigger motivator than love and joy.
Of course.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah. So if you want people to march to the polling stations, apathy, things like being happy and joyous and being okay with your life. If you're comfortable with everything the way it is, going and voting, you feel like, no, it's all right.
Yeah.
But if you feel like, you know what, everything's fucked. Yeah?
Change must come.
Yeah, change, exactly. Change must come. I got to make a change. You know what? These guys ain't cutting it. That guy is saying the thing I want to hear. And unfortunately, the only thing they're feeding off is that. They have no other politics. Yeah, nothing is costed. You look up and down the country and look at the the cities and towns that they've been voted in at. It's a shambles.
Of course.
They're being, they're bullying each other, yeah, and things like that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not here to bash reform and say that Labour and Conservative, because I don't think any of them are great. Yeah, I personally I've only voted 3 times in my life, and that was twice for Jeremy Corbyn. The reason why Jeremy Corbyn for me was the guy I would vote for is because for me he was incorruptible. Yeah, he didn't take donor money. Some of his politics, I didn't agree with everything, but the main crux of it, when he, what he talked about, I liked. And the other thing was to remain in Europe.
Yeah,
because I saw that and I thought, owning businesses, coming out of Europe was the worst thing we could have done, and it is the worst thing we've done.
And 99% of people couldn't tell you why they wanted to leave the EU and what the pros and cons were, which is the base of all of this.
The funny thing about that as well, the same people that wanted out of Europe are complaining about the boats coming in. When we went out of Europe, we lost what was called the right to return. So if a boat came here, then because of the EU and the agreements we have with the rest of Europe, is that by law, they would have to go back to the first safe country they went to in Europe. But because we're out of EU, we no longer have that. Mm-hmm. So hence we've got the number of people here on boats. And the thing is, those migrants know that. So that's why they've come here.
Of course they do.
Yeah, because we've come out of the EU. And so that's part of it. So, you've got that situation about the feeding off that hate, feeding off, and it's also very easy to, economically, the country's not great. Yeah, your average person out there, they're struggling with the cost of food now. Back in the day, £50 would fill up a whole trolley. One carrier bag is £50 now. Yeah, so how are people, getting by? So it's and people are looking for someone to blame. Yeah, and it's very easy to say, well, do you know what? There's these people. They look different to us. They are different to us, and they're taking your money. And if you're in that situation, I would urge you to just consider. Let's say tomorrow every brown person just left. Are you going to get richer? Yeah. And if you can answer that.
I don't know if you saw me share it the other day, but someone said to me, I said, I won't lie. I said, I don't have a horse in the race. I always treat people how they treat me. And I tend to live by a really common rule. The best person gets the job. And I said, absolutely, if most brown people left, and let's just say anyone who's not white, mm-hmm, the best doctors I've ever met have been Asian. The best scientists I've ever met have been Chinese or Korean on a large scale. The people who've helped me the most have been, without doubt, my Muslim brothers. If I was to use a percentage, the people who've offered me, even friends I've not even met have messaged me. And I said to someone, if everybody left, all you would find is the jobs you have to genuinely work harder for longer for and sacrifice more would go. You would not make a penny more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is, and unfortunately, that gets me hate. But it's true, because I said to someone, and Jordan Peterson said it. He said, most of your problems don't start and stop with a God, and don't start and stop with who's in Parliament. They start and stop with your choices and habits every day. And most people I meet, they go, Scott, there's too many Muslims, I can't get a job. Okay, so when was the last time you educated yourself?
Yeah.
Well, when was the last time you stopped drinking every Friday? Well, what it is you stopped smoking yet? Well, do you invest in anything? Why have you bought the latest car? Well, no, what it is, it's the Muslims. It's the blacks. And I'm like, okay, so tell me how.
Yeah.
It's just the blacks. It's the migrants. Okay, so what part of the migrants taking your jobs? They get hotels. Okay, so what's stopping you get a job not in a hotel? They're getting all my tax money. You're on the dole, motherfucker.
Yeah.
And it's the most nonsensical look at a common enemy created to divide us.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about looking past the mega rich corporations and the parliament and the people who are dodging tax and making backhanders. Tony Blair made more money off the Iraq war instead of being hung at the Hague.
Yeah, we'll get on to him in a bit.
So in that sense, and I this is why I wanted you on here, because you speak sense. Why do you think we've allowed ourselves to have and obviously you can look back through history, create a common enemy. If you want so I think it was Kevin Spade off the Blacklist said, as Red Reddington, if you want your enemy to like you, create a problem for your enemy and solve it yourself. Absolutely.
So, like going back to what you just said there, in terms of like, why have we got here and what has been the issue? Now, the migrant issue, yes, it is a problem, and I would agree with everyone on that. Yeah, most people, but there are 120,000 of them. There's not millions of them.
Yep.
Yeah, there's 120,000 migrants. Now, if you look at the curvature of asylum seekers coming in, it hasn't really changed.
Yeah.
It's just the way it's been portrayed and the way it's been treated. Now, people that are complaining about these guys in hotels, all right, every single one of them, I would ask them, all right, would you swap your position right now, yeah, as dire as you're explaining it to be in one of those hotels? Yeah, because they ain't the hotels with the blankets and the jacuzzis.
iPhone 15s.
Yeah.
Honestly, you only have to look at the hotels and look at the people
Exactly.
to know that was a lie.
Yeah, exactly. So they're not getting jacuzzis. They're not getting all of that kind of stuff.
They get cars and 4-bedroom houses.
They're getting fuck all.
Honestly, it baffles me, Abdul, because someone asked me and I said, I don't know, so I'm going to go and have a look. And there's only one place, I think, in Manchester I saw, and it was a shithole, and they look fucked. It genuinely looked like I'd have probably stayed in France.
Absolutely. So, you got that side of things. And the other side of things, that's what you're talking about in the Blacklist, which is amazing, by the way.
Yeah, amazing. Love it.
Yeah. So, it's classic destabilization.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we are actually no longer, we are under attack, the country, but not in the way everybody thinks it is. We're under attack by big corporations.
Yeah.
And that's what it boils down to. Yeah,
Lloyds got Bank, BlackRock.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you look at what BlackRock's done to America. So I've got a lot of family in America. I go there quite a lot.
Yeah, you do.
So what they do, they come in to a certain zip code. They will look at property there and they will offer 50% to 100% above market rate. Because in America, what you got is, instead of council tax, you got property tax, which is
tax, yeah.
So about $1 million house, you're paying about $20,000 a year in tax. Now, if they come in and pay 50,000 to 100,000 above market rate, suddenly the value of property in that area is now up here.
Yep.
So suddenly the property tax situation goes up. Yep. And what happens in America, a lot of people, even though they own their house outright, because they can't afford the property tax, they foreclose.
Well, you saw that all the subprime mortgages screwed them.
Yeah, exactly. So then what happens is BlackRock just buy up everything. So they have about $10 trillion worth of property assets. Yeah,
Lloyds Bank trying to do it now.
Yeah, exactly.
Buy 50,000
homes. And this is what's happening. So
biggest corporate landlords in the UK at one point.
Exactly. So this is only going to get worse. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be paying $2,500 for a 2-bedroom flat soon.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's coming. Yeah, now, and the other thing, what you have here is, because if I want to give you like my point of view in terms of how I experience this, right? Yeah, it's like I go through periods of, you know what, we're chilled, and then it's like, oh, it's fucked again. Yeah, do you know what I mean? And I don't know what to do about it. And I haven't changed anything that I've been doing. Everybody that I know has been the same.
Yeah.
And we just have to adjust, because it's like we're not going to change everybody's perspective. We don't have the power, because people much more powerful than us are making this happen. So, for example, the migrant issue, that was used, like boats are coming in, hotels are being packed out. How does that relate to Islam is really bad for this country? They're unrelated.
And the problem is, I think, I said someone, a police officer friend of mine, he said there'd been 7 rapes the other night from white men, one from an illegal immigrant staying in a hotel. He said, we weren't allowed to talk about the 7. We had to talk about the 1. And he happened to be from Islam. I said, so were the others Christians? And he went, don't know. As far as I know, they didn't have any religion. I said, why can't we then say there is a problem with that hotel and those people? Obviously, if you're coming from Syria, you bring your family if it's asylum. You don't come yourself. So for starters, you can see that this is a very orchestrated point. They're letting grown men fighting age come over. It's not families.
Yeah.
Why?
So on that side, what I always do, regardless if I agree with this scenario or not, yeah, even with, for example, the recent march where there was a lot of Islamophobia here, but then at the same time I thought, okay, well, no, let me put myself into a situation of your average white, because I do think there is a problem with the government intentionally ignoring the white man.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, they
to make them angry.
Yeah, to make them angry.
Unseen.
Yeah. So and I don't, and that's not a good idea. Yeah, of course it's not, because that's the majority of the population.
Yep.
Yeah. So you don't want to piss them off either.
And give them as much limited information about the other side as you can.
Exactly.
Let fear grow.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but in terms of like the migrant situation about the guys coming over, so I looked into this as well, because my missus works, her office is near a hotel, and she was like, Jesus, it was horrible. There was just blokes everywhere. So again, I thought, why does this happen? And the route to come in via these boats is very unsafe. Yeah. Because you're talking about 30 guys on a dinghy.
Yeah.
And you say like recently, like infant that did come over, flew out of the dinghy and died.
Yeah.
So,
and which people were, as you saw on social media, they were laughing faces.
Exactly.
Which I said to someone, if the type of people who are objecting to life being the way it is are laughing at dead kids, I don't know if I want you in my corner either.
Absolutely. And that's another subject altogether.
We're doing part 2 and part 3. So let's just do part 1. Yeah. We'll stick to the topic.
Yeah, so absolutely. So what the guy on the boat that's coming to the hotel is going to say is that, look, it's not safe for my wife and kids to come over. So I make my way here first, get my asylum, then bring my kids over on a safer route. Now, whether, that's their logic behind it, but even then, it's like the root cause of it. What if, for example, let's say I keep fucking about with your missus and your kids, right? And I bother them all the time. And every Friday, you come and knock me the fuck out, yeah? And then I'm thinking, shit, every Friday, Scott comes to my house and sparks me out completely, yeah? What's the easiest way for me to stop getting knocked out? Is to stop bothering you and your family, right? Yeah. Because that's what's causing it, right?
Yeah, cause and effect.
So, exactly, right? So when we went out, and I say we because people will say, "Oh, what's he talking about?" I'm British, right? This is the only country I know.
Yeah.
I was born here. So when we go around and we do destabilize these nations, right? And there's going to be an influx of people getting out of there to go to other places. Mm-hmm. And then other countries want to push them out, and then they find their way all over Europe. Yeah. And this is naturally what happens. We did it, Iraq, Libya, Syria, Afghanistan. There's millions upon millions of people. Yeah. Like just, no place to live, no place to go. And they're desperate.
Of which people were still voting for Tony Blair. Yeah. Even after that happened.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then what you have is obviously, we have a nation in Israel, yeah, and I'm sure we can just talk about it like that. It's
I want to be open with everything.
Yeah. So in this country, when you look at it, for example, Tommy Robinson from Luton, he's my age. When he started the EDL, it was the Jewish and English Defence League. Then he changed it to the English Defence League. Then you think, why? And then it comes out the woodwork that he was paid about £8,000 a month at one point from various Jewish donors from Israel. So I'd rather use the term Zionist than Jewish. Yeah. So the Zionist donors. And then he's always talking about the British flag, but he's got the Israeli flag there as well. Yeah. And right now he's over there, shilling for Zionists and doing the propaganda for them. And you can tell that he is paid to create this narrative, because what he will do is every day come out, and like that march that was done in London, yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of good people there that wanted to just feel British again, and that's fine. Like me personally, I'm not very patriotic in that way, in terms of for any country. Yeah, I'm not just talking about Britain. I just, but I understand it. I've got neighbors that are patriotic. I got friends that are patriotic. I was in the fire service for 10 years. Yeah, so it was predominantly all English white men that I worked with. And some of them are very patriotic, so I understand it and I respect it, and that's great. That's fine. You want to do that. You feel like the country's like slipping away, and when I do talk to people, I can understand it. Yeah, I might not agree with some things they say. So, for example, like I had a friend of mine from the bodybuilding days. He messaged me actually on Instagram a few months ago. He's talking about like these, it's all great, but I wish the Muslims would integrate more. I was like, well, in what do you want us to? What do you want them to do? Tell me what you want them to do. He goes, well, integrate. I was like, yeah. So what does that mean? He goes, oh, it means mix. I go, I know what it means, but what would you like them to do? Yeah. What is it? Tell me the steps that they could take to make you feel more comfortable. He goes, oh, so I go to an area and it's just brown people. I'm like, okay, so should we move white people into those areas? Like, what makes it better? He goes, no, but I go there and there's like brown people. There's like these Asian grocery stores. I go, yeah, because the businesses there are going to be geared around the customers, right? So to make the most amount of money. So they're going to sell stuff that those people eat. Like, do you want them to change the things they eat? But he couldn't quite answer it. But at the same time, I still kind of understand it. Yeah, because, maybe you grew up in an era where there was pubs and pie and mash shops and all of that kind of stuff, and all of those things have disappeared, and it makes you a bit sad. Mm-hmm. So it's understandable, but
also that's not the fault of the Asian man.
No, it's not, exactly. And it's not actually the fault of anything, it's just evolution.
And so I'm from Wales, I'm proud Welshman. People say, you English? I'm like, no, I'm a proud Welshman, and no Welshman wants to be an Englishman, is the joke. If you go to most parts of rural Wales, which is where they speak the language, they are more, and I will use it, prejudice than anyone. I'm from South Wales and I don't speak fluent Welsh. I go to North Wales, which is near here, and they ask me where I'm from. When I tell them, they speak in Welsh behind my back. They won't serve me in certain parts. And if they do, they're very openly rude. They're prejudiced because they like it to be their part of Wales. And guess what? I accept that because it helps them live a better, culturally appropriate life. I wouldn't expect them to put a Boots there if they can have their very Welsh-speaking shop with a Welsh sign above it, a Cymru flag instead of Wales. So I say this to my white friends. I'm like, if you live in an area predominantly Muslim and you eat predominantly Muslim food, say you're from Pakistan, why would you want to eat from a Tesco's there where it's not culturally what you eat? It doesn't mean you have a shop next door that you trod on all the English British food. No. It means you prefer. It's a preference. It doesn't mean you want the culture to win outright. No. And this is where I feel people need to actually go and step foot in any part of Britain that isn't your culture and just ask them if they want to do harm and if they don't like a fish and chips. The amount of British people I know who will have an Indian outright, but then will say, get out. Did the Indian guy never want your money? Because if he was truly prejudiced, he wouldn't even allow you in there. Because there are parts of Wales you can't go in if you're English. It's like there are pubs that won't let you in if you're a traveller. They're openly prejudiced. They're the people you have to worry about. And one thing I wanted to touch on that you were saying is at what point do you think the white British population have been conned into believing that we've lost part of our British culture?
Yeah, so it comes down to you got to take it back. So you got to strip back and then define what is British culture. Can you define that? Yeah,
I can't.
Exactly. So this is what it comes down to.
If you go back to the colonial times, it's very hard to define what came in and what came out because a lot of it is very toxic.
Yeah, so the people that are upset about it, they've never lived in that era. Right? So what we have now is actually all we've ever known.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, maybe certain things have been changed. Yeah, the Eastern European people come in and then there was, it changed a little bit then. But then, figuring out what is, so the definition of being British is that you're a citizen here. That's from the Home Office. And that's the only definition that there is. Yeah. Then we can then go down the route of what are good British values and bad British values. Yeah. Or, being a good citizen of the country, what does that entail? And to me, that entails obviously looking after your neighbor is my number one thing. Yeah. So is my neighbor okay? Is my neighbor checking on me? Yeah. So that's our little microcosm and we can kind of, manage that and control that. Then beyond that, it is, things to me are, is my street clean? Yeah. Is there something I can do to clean my street? Am I pissing up against a building after I've gone out on the lash on a Friday? Not me personally, because I don't drink, but things like that, right? Yeah. So that to me shows that you're proud of where you are because you're looking after the country you're in. Now, of course, if there's some bad eggs in there, we should root them out 100%, right? So, I know we've got a limited amount of time, but I want to get quite a lot in. But in terms of, for example,
we're doing well.
Yeah, for example, like the grooming gang situation, right? Yeah. So we can talk about all day whether there's more, Asian grooming gangs or more white grooming gangs, or if there's.
And again, people wrongly, just to be devil's advocate, don't separate the Indian grooming gangs from the Muslim grooming gangs, which again is people lumping. Like I said, I know people who actively I've sat down with and they've gone, oh my God, that groom gang scandal. I'm like, okay, that was actually a Sikh grooming gang, and you went to the Indian last Friday with all your mates. Which is it?
Yeah.
Where are you selectively choosing? Again, I wanted to touch on it with your German car. Your ability to be British is, as you said, controllable by your little biosphere.
Yeah.
And it's completely messed up internally anyway.
Yeah.
Let alone what you're worrying about the bigger picture. So
Exactly.
let's draw it back to the grooming gangs. I think that is the one that confused me until a few years ago, until I actually looked at the real statistics. And again, at no point are we saying there isn't an illegal immigration problem. At no point are we saying into individual sections of everyone's culture there aren't bad eggs, because there are. I know some people in every culture that we need to wean out.
Absolutely.
But when it comes to grooming gangs, from your point of view as a proud Muslim, where do you feel that's been so wrongly reported and also neglected for, I think, a clandestine reason?
So so I think there's two issues here. Firstly, I will agree with some of the things that I hate the term far right, far left. Yeah, I think I think they're very polarizing things
Impossible
to say.
to define, isn't it?
And it's really bad. Like, especially if you see the way that America's gone, because whenever America does something, sneezes, we catch a cold and we try and copy them, right? So like it's violent over there, and we don't want it to get there here. Now, with the grooming, like at the beginning, there was, like with the Rotherham stuff, there was cover-ups. Yeah, there was people trying to do things that to cover it up, but I can guarantee you that nobody in the Muslim community wants that covered up. Yeah, that if there's a grooming gang, fucking deal with them. Yeah,
and don't you agree? And you've told me, and all my Muslim friends, you do a lot of in-policing anyway.
Absolutely. If we can identify these people and figure out that they're wrong, we will deal with it. We will get the legal teams in, or the police, sorry, and anything that we can do, because we don't want them in our community. Why would we want that in our community? Yeah, we don't want it, and regardless. And going back to I know people will say, deport them. Now, I can guarantee you, if you had a grooming gang there and they were Asians or Muslims or whatever they were, and you deported them, we would not give a fuck. We would be like, even if you didn't deport the white people because they're here, because there's nowhere to deport them to, but there was a place you could deport the Muslim guys to because they were convicted rapists and pedophiles, we'd be like, fucking thank God. Yeah, get rid of them. We don't give a shit where you send them.
If you ask 99% of Muslims, they will all say the same.
Yeah, get rid of them. Yeah, we could not give a fuck.
And the thing is, people say, well, you want the cover up. I'm like, no Muslim man or woman I know wants a grooming gang to be covered up, because it just gives every good Muslim or Sikh a bad name.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's this idea that you secretly want to brush it under the counter because you're bad people.
Yeah.
And I honestly think it started with a clandestine motive.
And absolutely. And I genuinely think, because in this country, because obviously what we got about 3.5 million Muslims in this country. So that's a big enough proportion to create a broad enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and so if you've got antagonists, paid antagonists, because it's easy to feed off people that are, because there's a lot of people like, it's going to sound weird, but I don't think bigotry and racism is the worst thing in the world. Yeah. When I say that, I mean, if someone's a bit bigoted or someone has some sort of prejudice in them, right? For me, that's not the worst thing in the world, because every single person has something, right? And if somebody said to me, there's something they don't like about my culture or my religion, that's cool. We can still coexist. Yeah. We don't have to fight. Yeah. You can disagree with some elements of the way I live. I can disagree with some elements of the way you live, but for me, it goes back to the term peacetime. So the term peacetime means if we're not in conflict, right? Yeah. So apparently we're in peacetime, but it doesn't feel like it, because what it should be is we should be able to be in this like infinite universe, our unique individual self, and to be able to say certain things, without us being attacked. Yeah, and that goes for the white man, that goes for the Muslim man, the white woman, and everything in between. Yeah, so they should be able to say what they're feeling. Where for me it does cross the line is if you are going down a route of bullying a certain community. Yeah, saying something that will intentionally, like for example, there's a few churches in our location, and there's lovely guys that are priests and work for the. Would I dare say anything about Christian? Because I know how badly it will hurt them. Yeah, it's like me, like saying something, inflammatory against their children. That's how close they hold, Christianity.
And I think that is a really good point. A lot of the Muslim faith, it is a deeper faith when it comes to inflammatory and defamatory comments.
Yeah.
Whereas I find the Christian church, God, what has annoyed me a lot is a lot of friends I know are atheists, yet they're selectively God-fearing Christians when it comes to being insulted about the Church of England. Yeah. Yet they don't understand that when you are really a devout Muslim, and like I say, I'm not paid to do this, it would be wrong of me ethically to not say, in my times of need, my Muslim brothers, and some I've not even met, I've just been on the internet with for years, have been the first people to say, do you need a home? Do you need a shoulder? Do you need something?
Yeah.
And what I find is it's the unfortunate, misguided information about how devout some Muslims are to their faith that we get this unfortunate parallel between, well, I attacked the Imam and their community reacted, but they said something about us, but you don't give a shit about your religion, they do. So of course they said something back. Of course they acted hurt. But it's why you're pushing that agenda rather than saying, well, actually, I don't really give a shit about the church, but I'm sorry I offended you. It's well, you're offended, now I can be. Yeah, but yours is based off fuck all. Yeah. You weren't a devout Christian. There's nothing to be offended about.
Yeah.
Yet you want to use this now as the reason. I remember I sent you a video of a big Muslim gang going around the street saying Allah, blah, 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 blah. And you said that's because a load of them just got beat up.
Yeah.
If you hadn't beat, and I thought that's the classic example. What happened before?
Yeah. So that was from the riots recently,
right?
Yeah. And which lasted 3 days. But yeah, so in terms of that way, why would I want to say something that would really hurt somebody?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I understand satire. There's a place for everything. That should exist, right? And
I think losing some of that, the spitting image, the phone jacker, the rubber dinghy rappers, it's kind of killed that inter-community spirit because everything's so serious now.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you got in at these marches that they were like, Christ is King, Christ is King. Yeah, that's great. How many of you guys went to church the next day? It was a Sunday or the day after, right? But it's not even that. Like, if you tell me that this is a Christian country, I'd be like, I would love for this to be a fully Christian country. Yeah, where people are church going, God fearing, and
help thy neighbor.
Yeah, help thy neighbor.
Don't live in sin.
All of this kind of stuff. If we had that, then
look after your kids, stay out the pubs.
Yeah, we'd be better. We'd be better off. And as a Muslim, it'd be better for us. Yeah, I'd love that. Yeah, it'd be great. But going back to like the marches and one of the it's easy to digress off these subjects.
Let's touch on Tommy Robinson because we already touch on him a lot. But
well,
because he is without doubt the white, hero,
the savior, isn't he?
In the British camp, Katie Hopkins, different people aside, again. We can digress and say a lot of you aren't God-fearing, white, community-driven, actually British, buying the cars, staying in the pubs. People left the pubs for the nightclubs and the Deliveroo, and the pubs went to shit. You didn't put your money on your own communities, so your communities went to shit. The Asians, the Nigerians, they all, actually, let's keep putting the money in the corner shops.
Yeah.
So but that's something I want to press on because I've said to a lot of my white friends, you all left your own communities to ruin. You're a bit jealous that the Asian communities don't. Let's not say they took our communities. Let's actually say we didn't want our own.
Yeah, and I will say, are there problems in the Asian communities? Yes, there are. Yeah, there are some areas that have a violence issue. There's some areas that have a drug issue, but that's pretty much everywhere.
Everyone.
Yeah, and going back to the grooming gangs as well, they're just all groomers, whether they're white, they're brown, whatever. They're just all nonsense, and we need to fuck them all off. Right? Yeah, get rid of them all. And
so why do you think they covered a lot up? Because obviously, I'm like you, everyone who's a nonce and a groomer. Yeah, I do have to admit, for my own cultural bias, if they've come over on a boat last week illegally and this week they've assaulted a 10-year-old girl, I have a bit more of a problem because I'd rather the enemy be within and homegrown than the one we're inviting in. Because I feel like if we went back to the grassroots of why we have homegrown terror, people would have a better life than worrying about the random guy from
Yeah, no, I get it.
Syria.
Like
Do you see what?
it's an alien threat.
It's an alien threat,
Yeah,
and I think
there's
we've
no
got
control.
enough homegrown threats.
Yeah, and there's less control over that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But
But the grooming gangs.
the grooming gangs, yeah. So, with the cover up, it makes no sense. Yeah. Like, why would they want to?
I don't get it
Yeah,
either.
it doesn't make any sense. Obviously, the narrative is that they wanted to just protect the Muslim communities, but it still doesn't. What they did was illegal, yeah, and they needed to be punishable by law, which eventually they did. But a part of me just feels like that's just part of, like, because when you as a white man hear that that's been covered up, that makes you angry, right? Yeah, so it's...
And you also forget that there's a massive white grooming gang problem.
Yeah.
There's a massive white male rapist problem.
Yeah.
It's not always legal immigrants, and it's not always Muslims or Sikhs. And I feel like we've been somehow led to forget about that it's a total problem. And I always say to people, I care that the white man stalked your daughter and the illegal immigrant both together, and I'll fight both separately. It's not a one or the other.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, you can't be okay with a British nonce and not be okay.
But people have literally, on that march, it's like the All Lives Matter. I get certain cultures feel more attacked than others, and I can't possibly begin to feel that because I'm not in their skin. But I tell people, as a white man, I've probably, to the power of 10 to 1, heard more problems of the white man as a misogynist, a rapist, a paedophile than I ever have any of my Muslim friends tell me in their communities. I want to police mine and you want to police yours.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why have we been led to believe that you don't want to police yours and we should forget about ours? Because when you hear the stats, people go, well, it's like a 7 to 1 white rapist thing. Oh yeah, but the Muslims let that happen. I'm like, no, we don't, so they don't. Like,
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's just there's a problem with bad men in society. Yeah, there are a lot of bad men out there, and there is a problem that needs to be addressed. And maybe when you drill down into it, maybe you got to think, okay, let's look at it culturally. Is there a cultural issue? And that's not a problem. We can have that conversation. Yeah, and at the end of it, we probably will find that, you know what, it's not a cultural thing. It's just they're arseholes. Yeah, exactly.
So do you think because I do, I grew up I played basketball up to pro level. I was probably the minority in terms of my color all the time. So I grew up in a really multicultural way. I lived with one of my best friends at uni for 10 years who was Nigerian, purebred Nigerian, still had 7 names. I was always led to believe that if you wanted to find out about a community, you went and saw and asked the people in the community. Why do you think we've been led to believe that grooming gangs is a problem that the Muslim community and the Sikh community don't want to deal with? I know you can't speak for the Indians, but this is the thing I want to get through from this podcast as an overriding idea is you're being lied to about what the other side thinks, because you are.
Yeah, because... really, we can bring it back to our friend Tommy Robinson, who, he is paid by a foreign nation, to come here and, to tell you that the Muslims are a problem. They're here to, rape your children and all of this kind of stuff, which is just not true. Yeah, it's just not true. We've been here for, decades and decades. Yeah, and really we're part of the fabric.
And I will argue until I'm blue in the face, and we've had this conversation, this will be part 2, that it was way more violent when I was growing up.
Absolutely.
Way more violent.
Like London violence,
I went to Teesside Uni for 5 years, and I have to admit it was, the stories will be for part 2, but I told everyone I feel safer and I feel my daughter's safer, and I know most women tell me they feel safer than they ever did in the 80s and 90s. Racism was, I used to walk around with Tony, my housemate, and people would walk up to him and call him a gorilla, a monkey, the N-word, to his face.
Yeah.
It wasn't even on the internet with a fake profile. It was shouting out of cars.
Yeah.
And I said to someone, why have we been torn now to believe that this amazing multicultural, which, as you said, rightfully has migrated, the pubs are dead, the clubs are dead. You can argue as a culture, Asian people, Polish people tend to invest inwards first. So your ability to be economically stable lasts longer. There's more of a family environment. The Muslim community look after their elderly. We tend to put them in nursing homes because economically we're not as smart. You can suggest, not saying it, certain people. How has Tommy Robinson and all, because I'm publicly not a fan, and as everyone knows, I think he is a shill who's meant to cause terror and disinformation. But that doesn't mean he's not right about violent illegal immigrants. And this is the clever thing about diversion and division.
Of course it is, yeah.
They sprinkle truth in with complete bullshit.
Yeah, because it's very easy to do that, because what you can do is find one element of a problem that is factually correct, that you cannot dispute it, because everything lines up on it. You can use that as like your kind of like your backbone, and then the rest of the skeleton you can kind of fill in with, stuff that is not quite in here nor there. And then the person who's kind of pissed off with kind of like their own lives and how everything's going, and maybe they are a little bit racist as well, they will jump on that and lap it up. And then you'll get a massive following. And then if you've got people that control the algorithms paying your legal fees, you will go a long way. When the richest man in the world is going to retweet you every single day, then you've got the backing there. And what it comes down to conglomerates that are destabilizing this nation,
of course,
and every other nation on the planet. You look at, going back to Tony Blair, even I know people think where this is going, but Tony Blair, he's got a foundation. I thought, where the fuck has Tony Blair got a foundation, and what is it? His foundation is called Tony Blair's Institute for Global Change. That's what it's called. And when you dig deep into it, go on its website, and it'll say stuff like, here to advise organizations and governments and politicians on how to best govern with the aid of technology. And then you look through his donor, who funds it. The donor list. Larry Ellison gave him $257 million. $257 million. And Larry Ellison isn't doing that because he thinks Tony Blair is just this great guy who's going to make the world amazing. Larry Ellison's doing that because his company Oracle are out there, and also Peter Thiel's company Palantir, they're out there creating technology for the new digital ID stuff. And you got Tony Blair's son, Ewan Blair. He's like 3 years younger than me, and he's got the contract for the UK digital IDs, which is £100 billion contract. Stage 1. Okay, so you just got to follow the fucking money.
Well,
and
we go back to 9/11.
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
people that built the Twin Towers, friends of the friends who said the Muslims blew it up. And then you find out
and they shorted the airline companies.
Then they're the ones that shorted the airline companies. And you think, based on now, I will say this to everyone out there, whether you think it was Saudi Arabia, another Muslim country, whether you think it was Al-Qaeda, Saudi Arabia, Islamic Jihad, the Iranians, the Americans themselves, once you find out who shorted the airline companies and who got the construction contract straight away, anyone versed in anything should be looking right down the barrel of that gun, because that's pointed at everybody.
Absolutely. And, this is why, like, the reason why, voting for me, sometimes it feels a bit, I know, people should vote. It's a good thing to do, but
Plaid Cymru just beat Reform yesterday. Massively,
exactly. Exactly. But these, none of these guys are in charge.
No, of course they're not.
They're not in charge. That, the fact that a politician can only get in power if they've got massive donors. Now, that comes down to the ultimate scam, in my opinion. Now, obviously, I've worked in construction and worked in, looking at tenders and kind of like trying to win contracts and all of this kind of stuff, right? And a lot of the time, we go for contracts, and then we see that we were the best price. We were, everything was right, but the contract's gone to some other bloke, and then there's a relationship somewhere there. So it's like this. It's like,
I think PPI showed that in COVID. Exactly. People who had stationery companies suddenly mass marketing pharmaceutical products.
Absolutely. Matt Hancock's brother-in-law, who was a pub landlord, got the contract for the
30 million or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And people don't still believe that it's these powerful conglomerates that are manipulating everything.
Of course. If I'm going to give you £100 million for your campaign, you think I'm doing it just because I think you deserve to be Prime Minister. You got such passion. You're a great guy. It's not, because somewhere down the line, I'm going to get something out of that.
Yeah, of course.
In the same way, you got these guys taking, like, why would Keir Starmer want digital ID? He did, he
did you see a small U-turn today? Have you seen it? It's now not mandatory. You can still pay the 80 quid and use your passport.
Yeah. But here's the other thing. Why is every single country doing it at the same time?
Yep.
In the world, so everybody's come to that realization suddenly. It's not that. It's not that. It's they get the money. You got to follow the money. They're not in charge. It comes back to when I I have conversations with my friends about dictatorships and democracies. Yeah. So where you got a democracy, we've got a person in power for 4 years, maximum 8. Yeah. You try and build a house, it takes you a year to build it. Imagine trying to change a whole country.
Yeah.
How long? So I'll be in power for 4 years. Yeah. Then the things that I've wanted to do, HS2, maybe some other infrastructure stuff, and then somebody else has come in power and they've changed now they've got different kind of priorities.
You inherit shit.
Yeah, they're like, stop that shit. We're going to start this.
Yeah,
you can't really get anything fucking done. So that's why it sounds all a tinfoil hat and all that kind of stuff. But there are powers at work that are beyond our elected officials.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and they're manipulated by them.
And it's funny if you look at any, not that I'm a fan of any of them or not, but you look at Saddam, Netanyahu, all of them, they all speak about this.
Yeah.
They all say all you countries with your democracies are being shilled by bigger powers than we are. At least we're the only ones who are openly a dictator.
Absolutely.
You're running by dictators who are behind closed doors.
Yeah, absolutely. And
well, look at Saddam with Tony. He said, we're not the bad guys.
Yeah.
And as far as Haider told me, the people of Iraq didn't want the Western world messing with them.
No, and because look what's happened there.
Destabilization.
Yeah, destabilization. And, you go back to the whole thing right now, talking about that. So, you got 9/11 happened. They blamed Al-Qaeda for it, right? Yeah. But now you got Syria got destabilized. The global lead of Al-Qaeda is now in power there, put in place by USA, and he has been taken off the terror list.
Yep.
How does that make sense?
But most people don't know that. And if they did, they'd be like, I'm sorry, the enemy and now been put in place by the people who were sent to kill the enemy.
Yeah.
In a country that wasn't destabilized until the bad person who you've now put in power had a spotlight put on him by the people in power.
Exactly.
So play me this one again.
Yeah, it comes back to he was most likely always a CIA agent.
Always.
From the we watched it with what's that? Terminal List. Yeah. I was in the Lone Wolf version.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
The new one. Yeah. So the new
course.
one, the bad guy that the guy shot in the beginning of the show, he was an asset.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So it's they show us
Bin
this
Laden
stuff
being the biggest asset
exactly.
the Western world knows about.
Yeah.
CIA trained it. And this is why I try and tell people, I'm not saying that you need to sit there petrified about the powers that be. You just need to accept the fact that if there are these powers that be, maybe what's filtered down isn't necessarily for your good gain.
Yeah, no, we're not going to beat them. Yeah, we're not going to be able to get them out of power because, like one of the things that I got a lot of activist friends that are on different sides of the field, right? But they'll be like, you know what, we need to do something to take. I was like, no, if you're planning to take the government down, you better have a fucking bulletproof plan to take them down. Yeah. Because you're talking about people, that will annihilate 1 million lives and not lose a wink of fucking sleep. Yeah, those are gangsters. Yeah, the people you think are gangsters, they're not scary. The government is fucking scary.
Yeah, 100%.
You fuck with them in a certain way, they will make your life so fucking miserable. They kill people in the middle of the night.
Oh, wow.
And they don't lose a wink of sleep. In the Chilcot inquiry, that you had that doctor that's fucking died.
But you look at probably, God, I think of 5 examples where we've had people killed on British soil by foreign governments. And people, our government wouldn't do it. No one, not polonium, what was it? Novichok.
Yes.
In a restaurant, on a spoon.
Yeah.
You think it's not the movies, but it is the movies.
Where do you think the movies get their ideas from?
Yeah.
This is what it comes down to,
And I think going back to it nicely, the fact that Tommy Robinson's now gone to Israel and is openly saying, I am pro-Israel, should leave you believe that all the Free Palestine, anti-Gaza, you can't be anyone but a Zionist, was purely set up to do the same thing to the UK.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I will die on that sword. If you're going to trust anyone or not trust anyone, do not trust Tony Robinson. Out of everyone in the reform side of it, he is I'm not saying you can't trust some of them and there aren't problems with illegal immigrants and there aren't bad Muslims and bad white people and bad Sikhs and bad everyone. But one person not to trust is Tommy Robinson. And I'm shocked. Friends of mine who I thought were smart are like, he talks sense. I'm like, about what? Trump talks some sense.
Yeah.
Biden talks some sense. It's about what? And be careful where you align.
No, absolutely. And it comes down to the algorithm, Scott. If Elon Musk owns Twitter or X or whatever it's called now, Tommy Robinson, he really likes, right? So therefore, who's going to be pushed to the top? And now his voice is just everywhere. And, he's flown out to Israel. And somebody who's Britain first doesn't do that.
No, they don't. And I think that,
same with our SAS mayor, right? At Middleton.
He lives in Dubai.
Lives in Dubai. His kids
Sharia
go to a Muslim
law
school.
country.
Yeah.
This is why I say to people, if you don't want Sharia law here, why are you fleeing to places with
Sharia law.
absolute Sharia law?
Yeah. Like you got zero freedom there.
And I know a lot of people who I know who are wealthy bank there, and I'm like, actually ask a good tax advisor how safe your money is under Sharia law. Monaco, Guernsey, Switzerland, safe. Dubai, they'll pull the plug and you can try and sue them, they'll laugh at you and deport you.
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying I have a problem with Dubai. I'm saying if the very laws you don't want to live under, you don't want here, but you're fleeing to live under their law. I'd have respect for Ant Middleton if he lived in London now and was fighting on the forefront of London, cleaning the streets, trying to lock up everyone who's got a clandestine nature. You're in Dubai because you dodged your UK corporation tax.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, right? And I don't know the guy and I'm not a fan or not a fan, but on those levels, I'm like, that's no one I'm voting for.
Yeah. A friend of mine, his kids go to Ant Middleton's kids' school. Yeah, so they go to the same school. So he's like, yeah, he's fine. He's like, he's in the culture and everything. But he comes back here and he gives us all the, they need to assimilate, they need to adhere to British culture. But what is it? Tell us, define it.
But I always said to what aren't they? That we don't have there's not like a fish and chips rule.
Yeah.
The whole flag thing, again, I said that's been weaponized out of the Welsh flag is up in Wales and the British flag is. The St. George flag is weird because the guy was Turkish, of Roman descent. He never stepped foot in the UK. It's a weird premise based on poor education and fear-mongering.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And with that flag situation, now, if I thought, you know what, I've got a lot of English friends, and if it made them happy to have the flag up, I'd be like, come on, let's put a flag up.
Yeah.
It's going to make you happy, right? Yeah. Let's go do it. In fact, why isn't every town hall should have a flag up?
Do you know what?
Yeah.
And every one of my Muslim friends has said, if we saw British flag in every town hall, every supermarket, we've come here for a reason. Fly it.
Yeah, every country in the world does it. You go to Egypt, it's up everywhere. You go to Turkey, it's up. You go to America, it's fucking
on everything.
Yeah.
Even other flags merged in with the stars and stripes.
Yeah, exactly. It's everywhere. You go to any country, my motherland, Bangladesh. The Bangladesh flag is everywhere. Every government building definitely has it.
Yeah.
But here it doesn't. The town hall doesn't have the British flag up.
And you've got to ask yourself, why wasn't it there in the first place?
It should be there.
And why is there a problem with it now? Because I believe, and I am a massive one for the British and the Welsh flag, because I know no one from outside of those flag-bearing countries thinks it's a bad thing to be patriotic when it's done in a positive and appropriate way.
Yeah.
It's everyone who's just not white, get out. And it's a weird one because it really has shown how racist some people are.
It has, and it's sad. And I
very
think,
sad.
Yeah, it's very sad. And I think that's the main thing of it. I mean, when I was younger, maybe I would have been a bit more reactive with it and gone no, fuck you. X, Y, Z. We don't. But when you have children and they're growing up in this country, and you think, you know what, we're in a state now, and most civilizations get to this point where they get to this precipice, and at that point you can go two ways.
Yeah.
You can go and absolutely destroy yourselves, or you can actually make the right turn and say, you know what, there are problems, but this isn't how we deal with it. These aren't the people for me, people say, oh, the British. I'm like, no, but I'm part of you guys. I've been here forever. Yeah, I've contributed to the economy,
saved white English people's lives.
Yeah, well, I've been in the fire. I was in the fire service for 10 years, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of my friends are from the fire. We just had a reunion 2 days ago. All the guys. It was great. I've created jobs, and predominantly, the businesses that I've had, British white men worked in them. Yeah, so that was the majority of our workforce, and still is. And and I think where we're at now is still in flux in terms of which way we're going to go. Yeah, and that's what worries me the most about it, is that because I don't want to go to any other country. I don't want to go to Dubai. I don't want to go to, Bangladesh or wherever. I live here. Everything's based around here. All my friends are here. All my, my family are here. Everything I know is here. Yeah, and, we might complain about the weather or whatnot. I know my wife does, but end of the day, we're not really going to live anywhere else. And while we're here, I just like it to. There is no reason for it not to be okay. Yeah.
So this was going to be my next question, because I've often asked everybody, okay, tell me what the problem is with each other. And everyone looks a bit blank, because you get they don't try to integrate. So what do you mean? Wear an England football shirt, speak a bit Cockney, start a fish and restart local pub. What do you mean? Tell me actually where everybody who's not of your liking, and I make it dead easy, of your liking, can contribute to your life. Look at the grooming gangs, right? It's still a small percentage, and white people do it too. Let's get rid of the cover-up aspect. Let's just talk like for like. So we've got rid of that. What now do they need to do? Yeah, like you said, there's too many shops things. That happens in every community. There's a lot of white shops, Polish shops. Everyone is allowed to culturally shop in places where culturally they like to keep.
Absolutely.
And it's great that we have Jamaican food. You all fucking eat it. We eat it. Indian restaurants are the cornerstone of most football Saturdays. You have an Indian. Now, you're driving German cars, and we know how some people feel about the Second World War. You forgot that one. Let's not talk about the lies of Stalin and the Jew and the things that are blatantly, completely contorted about the Jew and anti-German, anti-Jew, anti-Stalin. We can go into that in a separate one. So tell me where this integration really needs to be. No one gives me a clueful answer on what that means. But when I say to them, okay, have you tried to go around the community centres and get a little football team together? Have you stood outside the school gates and maybe done a little patrol to make sure, because I heard 1 in 4 schools has a paedophile outside. And unfortunately, people, statistically, they're fucking white. Have you done that? Well, no, mate, you're in the pub, or you're at the or you're doing something on the PlayStation. Tell me how you are making Britain better. Well, I can't because of what? Because of 1%, 0.6% of people. It starts at home, my brothers.
Absolutely, and I think that and it's not just that's not just a British white problem. It's a problem with every single community in terms of we all got friends that always complain about their situations, but literally take 0 steps to make it better. We talk to them till we're blue in the face.
I work in the number 1 health and fitness.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so it's from a processed food. So do you go and shop cheaply, organically? No. Right? Do you drink water? No. Do you go to bed early? No. Do you go for walks? No. So tell me how it's processed food.
Yeah,
like tell me how McDonald's is the problem.
No, it's exactly that, and it's the same with
but there's no violence behind nutrition.
Yeah, exactly.
There's violence behind segregation.
Yeah, now and I think that's the problem. Like where you've got issues with other cultures, voice them. Yeah, and then maybe we can have an understanding, because we can have that conversation. And we can talk about it, and we can accept the fact that we're different in certain ways, but we're very similar in most ways. When you break it down, you can be in a room with somebody from the other side of the world, and when you break it down, that your impulses and everything are the same. There's just certain things that you grew up in a different environment. Maybe you spoke a different language. Your mom cooks a certain way. That you have those differences, but those differences are beautiful.
So do you think we've intentionally been separated? So these conversations, because I'm lucky, I've been involved in sport and fitness where basically you're thrust in gyms, social clubs, and you kind of instantly get, like, I say this to people, I have never, ever, ever faced funnier racism than being in a black basketball team.
I could imagine.
It is, the stuff they used to say, and I know this is the late 90s, and I'd laugh because it was said mostly out of love, and B, the threats were taken out of the words because they didn't have a threat behind them.
Yeah.
And I remember a couple of the players would be like, we'll give you the N-word pass because it means nothing to us, because there's nothing here that's incessantly violent about what you're about to say. It's just a word, but it's weaponized.
Exactly.
So where do you think the government have a part to play in this?
The government, for me, it's... Either it can be one of two things, right? The first thing is that they don't have a clue what they're doing, and I don't believe that. So when people say, the government are stupid, they're not stupid. Yeah? These people are very, very fucking smart people. Yeah? The majority of them have been raised since they were born to take the positions that they've taken. Yeah? So,
the boys' clubs.
Yeah. No, so like recently, I don't know if you saw online, there was a couple that were advertising for a gentleman to tutor their 1-year-old to get him ready for Eton.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah, so this is how they're raised, and so these aren't stupid people. So when it comes down to it, it's like this, right? So going back to the ultimate scam. Now, this country last year there was 800 billion pounds in tax paid to the state. This year it will exceed $1 trillion. Now that's a government fund. That's the ultimate jackpot. Now, if you're if you got a company and I'm about to become prime minister or chancellor of the exchequer or something, and you're like, Abdul, I sell weapons, yeah. So, and what's easiest is if you buy weapons off me, and that's me making money. So I'm like, cool, okay. So what I better do is give foreign aid to country in the form of, because in foreign aid we don't give £1 billion to a country. We give them £1 billion worth of stuff.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So it might be £1 billion worth of infrastructure. So you might be Halliburton, and I'll be like, cool. So I'm going to pay you £1 billion to go and build hospitals over there, or build army barracks or whatever over there. So it's me moving my money to you, but using that country as a foil.
Yeah, of course.
Right? So, and in the same way, so people like, then there's other people out there that want to do stuff like digital IDs, want to monitor every single fucking movement you do. Yeah, like companies like Palantir, Oracle, these guys are, and Tony Blair's Institute for Global Change, right? They want to get involved in this stuff. Now, they know if they just drop that on us now, we'll be like, fuck you. Yeah, everybody's going to be out on the street and be like, we ain't going back home till you stop doing this. So what you need to do is create a bit of unrest. And how do you do that? There's terror attacks, or the fear of terror attacks as well. You've got the grooming gangs. You know what? Sharia law is a problem. And that's when you go and you pay shills to go out there to spread that information. Yeah. So if you got a fellow British patriotic guy telling you that stuff, you'll be like, you know what? He's right. He must be right. And you use an element of truth in it. Yeah. That creates your perfect powder keg, right? To kind of spread that fear. And, and this is exactly what's happening. So you got that going on while these guys are pillaging the public fund. Right.
And this is the thing, Abdul. I say to people all the time, even if you disagree and you say, no, there is way more of a percentage problem with grooming gangs being Muslim. There's way more of a problem with Islamic groups being laden with terror. Okay, pause there. What the hell's the government doing with our taxes, our VAT, our heating bill, taking the stuff off LD? They're the biggest crooks for a start. So if we're going to do like a hierarchy of needs of crooks, surely we go after the heating bills for the elderly, the fact that I think E.ON made 3 trillion more, but they put our gas up by 20%. And that's what you're talking about. You're talking about the whole, don't look at the left while the right slaps you.
Absolutely. And the other thing that they do, the other tactic they do is they use labels on people. So where you've got somebody that's an environmentalist, that's a tree hugger. Right, where you've got somebody who's, that cares a lot about socioeconomic problems, that's a lefty.
Yeah, of course.
And now you got the new one, right, where you got the right-wing person. Well, traditionally the right-wing person, but it's actually saying, why are we getting involved in wars overseas? Yeah, we're British first. Yeah, why are we getting involved? Why are we sending money to Israel and Ukraine? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's not our problem. We got other problems here. They are now referred to as the woke right.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and that's another slander word just to discredit.
Well, it's like the word fascist and racist. I've never been called it so much, and I've stopped so many people on Threads and Instagram and gone, okay, please, by definition of racism and fascism, tell me what I've said. No, but you are, because you've said that you should put British flags up. I know plenty of people from Nigeria over here who agree. My friend Abdul agrees. Yeah. Well, okay, he's a different kind of racist. Sorry, so all of us are different colours and are racist. Yeah. It's a convenient word.
It's it's the laziest retort.
Of course.
Yeah? So if I turn around and say, oh, you know what, he's a racist, that means I don't have to acknowledge what he's saying. I don't have to refute anything he's saying. And also, even if I can't think of a way to get out of this debate, I just call him a racist and that's it. I call him a misogynist and that's it. So that means nothing he says counts. But it's the lazy. This is why I go back to the thing where I say, a bit of bigotry and a bit of racism in people, it's not the worst thing in the world, yeah? Because the worst thing in the world is war and killing, yeah? That is the worst thing in the world. Yeah? If we can start there and then work back, then we're okay.
And I think that's where the Tommy Robinson part of the racist right, as I'm just going to call it for now, were clever in the march, because so many people who were of Muslim faith, Sikh faith, African Christians, I've been told by people there, they weren't interviewed. They weren't asked to talk about why they were there. It was only one set really of people. It was, who are the Tommy Robinson fans who were there to talk about why we've got too many Muslims here.
Yeah, absolutely. And
out of the probably million people there, there's a damn few of them that probably would have stood there next to a black man, a brown man, and gone, we're all in this for our exact reason, but the government don't want you to talk to each other.
Now, about that march, like in terms of what I think was, it was really funny because you had that moment where Elon Musk was on the Jumbotron.
Told everyone to get ready to fight.
For violence. But he was wearing a George Orwell 1984 t-shirt.
Yeah.
Right? But he was depicting literally the bad guy from that From 1984.
I was explaining to my wife what the whole Orwellian warnings were, which we're walking into, and it's got nothing to do with the Muslim faith. It's got nothing to do with Sharia law. And everything to do with the powers that be.
Yeah, and then obviously you had Tommy Robinson that he flew in very like anti-Muslim speakers from all over the world, from Colombia, New Zealand, like people that have burnt the Quran.
Jesus, seeing those Maoris do that, I never knew they even had those kind of feelings.
Yeah, so they're from Destiny's Church or something like that. So they're a sect of the Maori that the original Maori actually hate. So and they're there to just they celebrate the Christchurch shootings. You remember the guy that went around like Call of Duty and just went into a mosque?
Yes.
Yeah. So they loved stuff like that. So you're talking about people that are out there calling for the death of people. Yeah.
The people at Middleton risked their lives to defend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is why I can't understand, because I've got ultimate faith for the SAS and the British forces. I am a British Welsh patriot, which is why I can't understand why people are being brainwashed to go to marches alongside people who are literally the antithesis of what you're standing for.
Absolutely, but it's
disinformation.
It's disinformation. But in terms of the people there, now there were. I like to believe that the vast majority of those people are just people that were disenfranchised by this country. Yeah.
Because of the government.
Because of the government. Because of their living standards. Yeah. And those are people that we should all march with. 100%. Yeah.
And do you know what, mate? I want people to listen to that, because a proud Muslim man has just said the people who are there because they've been disenfranchised by the government should be backed up.
Absolutely.
Which is exactly what the government say. None of the people of your colour will stand for.
Yeah. No, they
and every single person I know.
Yeah.
Like you, says the same thing.
Yeah,
because we can all see the oppression.
Of course, you can, and it's a class divide, it's a wealth divide, and the problem is, as you know, it's really hard to make money. Yeah, it's really fucking hard, especially and the more time goes by, the harder it is, and especially with the rate of the price increases and inflation, things just aren't gonna keep up. So you got this. Like horrible, and people are living in like really bad conditions, and they need someone to blame. And when you got a guy coming and telling you, well, these guys, if they weren't here, you'd be richer and you'd be better off, you'd have a better job, your kids would be safer, then you kind of go that way. And it's very easy to feed off that fear to create animosity and this ugliness that we're in.
And it is, and I've said to so many people, the reason I wanted to do this is because I believe that most. And I see it. I see the way the government have manipulated people, the way they've squeezed the elderly, the way they've brought the standard of living so low and prices so high that the average person is so desperate to find an enemy, because at the end of the day, if that enemy wasn't here, things would be different.
Yeah.
And I say to people, get some education on what you're talking about, why there's a social and class divide, why we're being culturally beaten down. I know plenty of pub landlords, without speaking too much personally, I know a lot about the pub and club game, and it's been almost impossible per head to keep them afloat. Business rates. This isn't the Muslim problem. This isn't the Sikh problem. This is the government's problem. This is the took away the COVID rate drops. This is the made bounce back loans hard to pay. This is inflation being as it is. Business loans getting harder to get. These are controlled oppressive tactics, and giving us then a common enemy is the easiest psyop ever.
Absolutely. And
it takes your time away from actually being like, hang on. Who's really battering our elderly and our taxes? You, Kia. You, John.
Yeah, and it's always been the way. Now, when people say, "Oh no, you know what? I'm going to vote somebody else in, and he's going to come in and he's going to fix everything." When was the last time you had a prime minister that you said, "You know what? He is great. He's doing everything I want to do." Like in living memory, it's.
But
not
you're almost then biased to giving examples of individuals with, like, you go, Margaret Thatcher wouldn't have stood for this, but she did that.
Yeah.
But Tony Blair didn't do this. Well, if you know anything about the reason the NHS fell,
Yeah.
it was his second Iraq.
Yeah.
You know, who is doing right by us?
Because the way our system operates with the donor system, this is the problem. When you have a donor system that is going to pay for someone to get into power, then you have to submit to the fact that somebody else has got influence over your head of state.
100%.
Yeah, and that's ultimately the problem.
You can see with the tariffs and China and things.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and even though whenever you mention Palantir, I feel so guilty for having this stuff.
I know, no.
And I even said this to you, I was like, I've got to feed my kids but again, in a macabre way, I'm even part of the bad system because I'm like, actually, I can't beat them, so I have to join them to an extent.
You are a trader. You're a trader by nature, so you're following the money.
Yeah.
That's a job in itself, and I do the same. Yeah,
But
so
it tells you everything you need to know.
exactly. So people that were in the trade, they were the only people that knew about Oracle.
Yeah.
That are looking at and then suddenly this year everybody's like, who the fuck is Larry Ellison? Yeah. And it's like, well, we knew because we saw that share price fucking soar up over the last however many years.
I know people who don't know who BlackRock are.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And I literally say to people, you're like an ant who is unaware there's a human foot there.
Yeah.
It's that big.
Yeah,
it's that big.
Fucking big.
If a lot of you out there just go on ChatGPT and type in who and why are BlackRock, you'll feel embarrassed you didn't know. And it will point to a lot of things. And again, I have to keep saying this because I know the way people contextualize things. There are problems with white grooming gangs, and there are problems with cover-ups with Asian grooming gangs. There are problems with illegal immigrants, and there are problems with certain male immigrants over, and there are problems with certain white men in the Me Too movement. We are not saying there aren't reasons to march. We're saying the clandestine reasons they want you all to hate other people is the reason why they're winning.
Yeah.
Because they're, back in the dark ages, they made pubs easy to start because you were drunk and less likely to revolt. It was an easy way to control you.
Of course. And I think the protesting thing is part of that. Like, I used to go on a lot of marches and stuff. And then at one point I thought, do you know what it is? It's like if you're really frustrated, right? And you like really angry about something, so you go on, you do 5 rounds on the bag, or you go to the gym and you smash out a few weights for an hour or so. Oh, you come out, you feel all right. That's what protesting is in this country.
100%.
It's to allow the public to vent and then go back to being good citizens again.
I say to people, the Free Palestine March did fuck all. The LGBTQ
the Iraq
did
War
fuck
March,
all.
that was a million man march. That was
Huge.
Yeah, it was huge. Did nothing. Still, a fucking million Iraqis died.
And Tony Blair never went to The Hague and got hung.
He's a billionaire now, isn't he?
And this is why I tell people, and again, I have to say this, Abdul, because I know people will segment things to fit contextualize. We're not saying that there weren't problems with Al-Qaeda around the world, and Saddam wasn't necessarily. We're saying the global overriding reason you're all unhappy are not the man with the skin color next to you, which differs from you. It's the overriding clandestine Machiavellian arc of the governments and the corporations run them.
And it's a tale as old as time. If you go back and you just realize that there's always external forces that come in to destabilize nations. They fund both sides of wars. Yeah, a lot of these massive corporations.
If people knew the Second World War was funded both sides by Jewish money, people would have an absolute
absolutely.
heart
And
attack.
it was funded by both sides. Hamas, how did they get their money? Israel gave it to them. Yeah, Hezbollah is the same. Yeah, all of these organizations that are on the terror list, how did they get armed? Al Qaeda, the Taliban. Go back to the war with Russia.
You look at the massive,
Charlie Wilson's war.
And you look at the massive problems. I don't know if anyone knows in Africa over the years. The WWE. How did they get the weapons in?
Yeah,
via the government.
Absolutely,
they funded both sides.
Yeah,
So, and again,
there's a Nicolas Cage movie about that. God of War.
God of War.
Yeah, brilliant.
But I tell people, and Prince Charles had half of his aid workers on the same planes with the same weapons, going into those, what do you call them? What are social wars called in those countries? They call them, God, what's the bloody word?
No, I know what you mean. It
But
evades me.
you look at the amount of Christians killed in Nigeria right now.
Yeah.
We're deliberately not shown that because they think we're too thick to have feet in multiple ports.
Yeah.
I said to someone, free Gaza, yes, because since the South Bank and since the oppression of the Palestinian people, I agree with. I know Jewish people who agree with that as well.
Yeah.
I also
As well.
know Jewish people who will say the Christians shouldn't be killed in Nigeria.
Yeah.
But you're not allowed to hear all those sides because it has to be one camp, one enemy.
Yeah. And it's about information dissemination as well. So
Yeah, massively.
the way you get your information. So firstly, they first owned, like we're talking about the same group of 5-6 people.
Of course.
And they owned all the media outlets. Then of course, social media came along and people are getting the news in a different way. But they kind of controlled that as well with Meta and X as well, all taken over.
And they all put it in front of you, you know.
Yeah.
Meta, yeah, we shared too much of we didn't share Hunter Biden's laptop at all because we knew it would
Exactly.
and people look at it and go, oh, that's okay. I'm like, whoa. They're admitting to segregating information which could have changed your opinion completely.
Exactly.
And you're not putting that into every other contextualized position.
Yeah. So the one thing that was killing them was TikTok, right?
No, 100%.
And now obviously Larry Ellison's America forced the sale of the US and Europe license to Larry Ellison.
Yep.
And now they've kind of ratcheted who gets the algorithm and who kind of...
And it's the most easily cancelable platform out there.
It is. Absolutely. They banned some emojis that they didn't like,
Yep,
and all of this kind of stuff. So, it's about controlling the mind because ultimately, I mean, like if we break it down and take it back to Israel can't do shit without America. Without America, they are nothing. Yeah, because geopolitically, it doesn't make sense. It's a country of 9 million people, has a GDP smaller than New Jersey.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
It's a GDP smaller than New Jersey.
Yeah.
That and it's got no resources. Yeah, so hence why they need to have the youth of America, because in America that's the problem they've got. Everybody under 30, Republican, Democrat, Independent, none of them back Israel.
100%.
Yeah. So that's why, you had the Charlie Kirk thing at the end where he kind of switched. I know that's a completely different story.
But it shows you someone who was staunchly Zionist, who turned around at the end and publicly said, actually, I don't agree with this. And you're now removing massive amounts of money because I don't agree with it. Then that's an agenda.
It is an agenda.
And what I respect about him is if you know there's an agenda, sit on the fucking fence. And I've said this to my friends because there's things I don't agree with in every single culture that sits in this UK. And I sit on the fence until I've physically been like COVID. 99% of people on here will know the wool was pulled over our eyes to do with COVID.
Yeah.
The rug was pulled away. We were made to be dicks. Most of us who weren't stood outside and went, and I remember being in my house and the guy who does the adverts in the cinema said something like, vaccinate, don't go outside, people are dying. And I turned to my wife and went, the fuck, what? What do you mean people are dying? It's not 28 days later.
Yeah.
Went to the high street. No one's got a mask. No one's dying. I didn't know any elderly. And I'm not saying there wasn't a bad flu-like epidemic, but I went, hang on, let's just calm down. I can physically see with my own eyes, this isn't the way they're saying it is. And people now go, God, I can't believe I was bullied into that and it wasn't. And and it was just a knee-jerk reaction to a new thing. All right, apply that right now then. Go out and speak to a Muslim guy, a Nigerian guy, go and speak to an Asian guy. See what they feel like. Oh, I can't fucking do that because Tommy Robinson said they all want Sharia law. But you just said that COVID was the same thing. Dissemination, false information, and not opening your eyes. Go do it. Well, what do you think, Scott? Again, grew up with a Nigerian guy. Most of my friends are Muslim, white. Like, there's no problem. Yeah, but Tommy Robinson. Sorry, who?
Yeah.
Like, who?
Yeah.
And this is the thing I say to people, who is fucking saying it?
And it's not about, somebody can say it, go find out for yourself.
It's the easiest thing in the world.
It's the easiest thing. There's so many of us there.
I know 99% of people don't ask me what's on the weather app.
Yeah.
They go outside because what do you say? Don't trust the weather app.
Yeah.
Who trusts the weather app? Nobody anymore. So go outside. And again, you'll find there are some really dodgy Muslim guys.
Definitely.
And I know some really dodgy racist combat 18 motherfuckers. And I've seen some Nigerian guys that need to be taught a lesson. And then I see some amazing Muslim brothers who will take you in. And I know some families that literally are as multicultural as you can. The white dads with an African lady and their son married an Asian woman. And we all live in harmony because they experience the culture. And I always tell the story, and I hate to bring him up, but I remember it was only probably 10 years ago when I truly understood a lot about the Quran and the Muslim faith. And I bought bacon into my friend Haider's house. I was staying with him, Iraqi Muslim. And I came down one morning, and it was in a Tesco bag. And I went, the fuck, hell, what's in a Tesco bag? And she went, it's against the Muslim faith to have pork in here. And I went, why didn't he just throw it in the bin? He said, because he respects it's your pork. And I went, wow. I'm not saying they would, but a Christian person probably wouldn't be that forgiving.
Yeah.
Because they tend not to be. And it changed me, and it made me look a lot deeper into what the Quran says. And one thing I wanted to bring up with you, because you've helped me so much in the last month before this, is I've seen videos on Instagram of radical Islamists. And I messaged you and I messaged other people like, by the way, they were in prison 5 years ago. We policed them 10 years ago. They're not here anymore. That's not a thing. And I'm like, but why is the video circulating now? Why is it all I see?
Because it's the algorithm does all of this. It wants to show you that as if it's now. And some of these videos, they were like 10, 15 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course, we have had that problem. Yeah. There's no hiding from it. But when you say we had that problem, we're talking about a group of 15 guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Group of 15 guys that they've assembled from all over the country. Right. Like a story that I will tell you about, which I don't think I've spoken to you about actually, is round about that same time you had that issue. That's when we had the EDL kind of form at that time. Yeah. But then also what we had was, there was a fella that was there. He was a Danish guy in Luton. And he had like a ginger beard and stuff. And he looked like, and he got banned from every mosque, right? Because he was coming in saying some really weird, off-key shit, like radical stuff. And then it turned out his name was Morten Storm. He was a double agent, worked for the MI5 and the Danish Secret Service. And he came to catch radicals. But what he was actually doing was trying to turn youngsters radical and then telling the authorities and getting them arrested. And this is something, and I remember I've seen this guy. I saw him at a friend's house, and he left. And I thought, that guy's fucking weird. He goes, yeah. He was all right before he came in here, and then he started talking all this nonsense. And but he was, and you can look him. He's got a book out. He wrote a book about it, and that's insane, right? That's crazy, because he came in like he was this convert, and he's like, and he's really devout and everything. He wasn't even Muslim. He was a government agent.
And you see it in the movies, and I say to people a lot of the times that the movies imitate real life perfectly, because it's hiding in plain sight.
Yeah.
Those Christians that say the best thing the devil ever did was, teach man he didn't exist, because that's the easiest is throw. So to round out part one, because I feel like we really dug deep on what people shouldn't see, what message would you tell people of a different faith to yours who are worried that what they see in the news and these marches, because it is always one-sided, what would be one of your messages to help people, as we've spoken about, because this is the main part, de-escalate the tension?
Yeah. So it is that, innit? We need to turn the temperature down, right? And it's what I'll say to when I told you about the guy who, you won't mind me saying his name, David. He messaged me and asked me about, why don't people integrate and whatnot. And I asked him, I go, do you think I've integrated? Yeah. And he said, yeah, of course, bang on, perfect. Well, I said to him, well, do you know, like literally almost all of my friends, all of my family, everybody that I know that is brown is like me. Yeah. So, none of them are any different, right? They want to get on with life. They want to provide the best they can for their families to start with and let their children grow up in a better world than they did. Yeah. And that's all we want, and which is exactly the same as all of my English friends as well.
Yeah.
So, I've worked in the fire service for 10 years, and, all of my friends, they were white. Yeah. And my business partner, Dave, he's a different Dave, but, he's like family to me. Yeah. And, I look after his kids, the same way he would look after his kids. And there is literally no difference to us. Yes, I have a religion, but that's not something I'm going to force onto you. And that's something personal to me that I practice in private. Yeah.
And I say to people, I don't believe in any God, and no one's ever held it against me.
No, why would I? Why would I? Because I'm on my journey, you're on yours. And it comes back to the original thing that we need to be able to be our absolute unique self, right? Because we're a whole universe individually.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we need to be able to be that and voice that. And maybe if we want to dress a bit differently, be allowed to dress like that, be allowed to eat what we want to eat. As long as I'm not harming you, I'm not bullying you.
Yeah.
And, if you need something, I will provide it. If I can, I'll provide it for you. Yeah, because we're fellow human beings sharing the same plane. And if we can all do that, then we're all right. Yeah, you can be a bit because the term racism is it's a fluid term, isn't it? Because one day something's racist, the next day one day something wasn't racist, the next day it is because somebody's offended by it. Yeah. But you can have these little things that are in you. And maybe you might voice them once in a while. Maybe you'll get frustrated and you say that's fine because you're human, yeah. And that's the other. I think it's two-pronged as well. I think it comes from both ways because what you can't do is tell people that look, it's okay. It's just you're being. It's like the London crime rates, right? The murder rate is your ultimate crime rate, right? That is the lowest it's ever been in London. All the other crimes were just not reportable crimes back in the day.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and people didn't report them. People didn't have apps on their phone to just quickly go bang. Yeah, or a mobile phone all the time to go 999. This has happened.
It's akin to the cancer screening. We didn't have the ability to screen for all the cancers which kill people. And if people look at the mortality rate from diseases people didn't know what they were higher in the 80s, higher in the 90s. I say to people, just because you see it doesn't mean there's more of it. It's just you're more aware of it. And to end out, I said this, I've lived in London, I've lived in Middlesbrough, I've lived in Bristol, St. Paul's, we used to go to Brixton. They are playgrounds compared to what they used to be like. But you're told the opposite for a reason. Yeah. And in part 2, we're definitely going to talk about the division of the major cities because obviously, I live in Warrington. There's no immigrants. There's no cultural wars, there's nothing. I say to people, if it was an indication of leaving the UK, I'd stay where I am. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott, for having me.
Part 1. I hope people have got a lot from this, and I hope if there's anything you get from it, it is speak to your neighbor, ask them what they feel, and just go via that. What you see on the news is never what you truly see. Cheers, buddy.
Always.